What's going on, everyone? Big Dom here, and welcome to my GSA tutorial Quickstart guide part 2. Now, before we begin, I want to take one step back and talk about the captcha breaker, because if you notice just to the right of the captcha breaker software, I have installed XRumer, Xevil, XRumer, and the authorization app. And this way, I just want to show you how Xevil can work in unison with this. It's an excellent captcha breaking program. Now, I believe I mentioned in a previous video how I had purchased a copy of XRumer some years ago. So I actually looked up my information, and it was back in 2017, and I reached out to Botmaster Lab, and it took a few days to get my information recovered, and then I was able to successfully recover my standard business license. Now, at the time when I purchased the standard business license, you only got to run one copy of XRumer, Xevil, and XRumer. However, the business and standard license have changed, and a standard license now allows you to run 2 copies of each. The business license, 5 copies. And since I wanted to have more copies of Xevil running, for me that was a bargain. But you can purchase Xevil separately for, I believe the price is $59. Now, in order for Xevil to run without the XRumer program logging in, it requires this authorization app. And I am going to make a tutorial video just about XRumer. It's a different but cool product. So, let me just get my password in here. And this will authorize with their server. And then once that starts, let's give it a second. Bam, and there it goes. We can see we're connected now, so we can minimize this and start up Xevil. And once Xevil is running, we'll give it a second, and then we should see this authorization. Shazam, successful. Okay, now that we've got this, I just want to show that there's 2 ways to do this. As I point out in the first video, you can configure from GSA's options, but if you're going to run both in tandem, as I said in the past, it's best to turn this off as running as a web server. Now, you can run it as a web server, but you will have to change the ports on the other softwares. The simpler solution, when you first get started, is to turn this off, and you won't have any problem connecting to the second one. Now that we have this in here, we can add Xevil to the list, and I usually change the retries to solve to 3, and that's it. Hit OK, and we are basically running, and that will connect. So what will happen when this is actually running, it'll pass the captchas to here. Anything this fails to break, it will then pass to Xevil. And Xevil is excellent, and I would have to say it is the best so far of between captcha breaker, this, and captcha spider. So now let's go back to our main part of our tutorial and look at the next thing that we need to get involved with to get set up and running. Now, as we proceed with our setup, remember, we don't put our main URL in here. This is just for test purposes. We will add a list of URLs. But before we get to that point, as we begin to add options, starting with articles, you'll see our options change up here. And email verification. So email verification, this is where we are going to create or set our email accounts that will be used to log into websites. What will happen is this will make a post. It will have to register first, give an email, then it will go to the email, confirm that it is real, and then be able to go back to the website and make its post. So that being said, let's remove this. Now, when you're using this for your most high quality campaigns that you are looking for a really good result, you are going to get the best results if you use your own email accounts. If you have your own website and you have control over email, make yourself 4 to 10 email accounts. What I do is I simply call them Sales 1, Sales 2, Sales 3, and I set them all up basically with the same password. Obviously, the username is the individual email address, and that is a better approach when you have emails for that. But obviously, you're not going to do that for every type of campaign. And like in the case of when I'm promoting YouTube videos with this, well, then I'm just going to let this create them for me. And look, they've got a great feature here. See, down here are the options. Once you start to add a new account, you can enter it manually. You give the email address and then proceed to fill in the info down here. But what we're going to do is create new. And what you can see is it's by default set to random, but it has a large list of sites from which to create free emails. So what you can do here is we can put even as many as 50 email accounts in here for it to create, and voila. Well, we didn't get 50, did we? Or did we, perhaps? So now we can test those email accounts and select test all. And every time we get a green bar, that means that account works. And likewise, when you configure individual accounts that you want to use for higher quality campaigns. See, we got one failed one already. And what I do is just let this run through the test process. And for any reason that any fail, I will simply just go back and uncheck them. And this way, you've got your email out of the way. Now, I had several questions on the comments of the videos, which I want to try to answer in this video. One of the individuals posted that he had a slow rate. He took about 6 hours. He had 20 postings. We'll address that shortly. Another one was in relation to how I set it up for YouTube videos. And at the time when he posted that, I actually just happened to be setting one up on GSA on another system. So I made a recording of that. And once we get through this process, we're going to just switch to that. So we've got 50 here. So, there we go. So is it complete? No, it's still going. Let's give it a second. I'll pause the video. We'll come back. Bam. And there we go. 49 success, failed 1. So let's just remove the failed and we are ready to go. That being said, now let's take a look at my article setup that I recorded, and we'll break into that, and that'll give you some really good insight in how I do YouTube and a little bit of bonus on my approach on how I do my descriptions with some AI generated content, etc., etc. So let's get into that now. Okay, this is a meditation channel that I was doing as a test but has been taking off, and I've probably got about 200 videos on here of varying nature sounds and sleep videos and meditation. So I've got quite a few on chakra, so I'm creating a campaign with GSA to promote a list of chakra videos. Okay, and you can see currently I'm up to this one, and I didn't add this one in, so let's take this URL. I want to give you an outline of my process. Now in here I'm adding my URL, and I'm going to add anchor text. So we're going to go OK. Now it's asking me for anchor text. I take right out of the video title and I put that in there. OK. And we can see here when I go to edit all, the list of all my YouTube videos and the anchor texts that I have added. A little adjustment. Spacer bars. Okay, and right here we'll adjust that and say OK. And when I was initially adding all these, at a certain point when I went to save the project, it asked me to give it a title, Chakra Meditation Videos. That's my title. So now I'm in the process of adding my articles, and I'm doing it one at a time. Now, in each of my videos, I have already created AI-generated blog articles. So now I will take this, I take it over to my spin rewriter, let's get rid of the previous one, put in a new one, I also want to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to get my, just take my title and put it in there up at the top. This should be capital. Put our title up here and rewrite. And what this is going to do is create spin tags for us. Shazam. Now, I'll take all of this right up to here, copy it, pull GSA back up, add a new article manually, paste that in here. Go back to the spin writer, grab my spun title, and again, I'm going to go in here, put that in my title. Now, what I also do is embed that video into my project post. Insert that at the top. I leave this in here, which is just going to pull the first paragraph as it gets spun. But what I also like to do is add a center tag, because no one ever does this really. In their posts, they tend to just set these up generically, and I like my things to be of a higher caliber, and it makes it stand apart from other spammy blogs. And we can preview just to see what that's going to roughly look like. It's going to have our video, our title, and all of our text is centered. Okay, anchor comes here, etc. Now, while we're just at that, let's just say okay. And let's take a look at this setting, because here we can insert additional images, and we can configure this and put custom images from URLs that we're going to feed to this that will go into the post. Or you can insert random images, okay, into the article. And what that's going to do is, when we now take a look at this, go preview, minimal, that one didn't do it, but normally what it'll do is it'll grab an image like from Google that is related and just insert it. And it can also do that with videos. Probably I don't have or I need to close this and open it, and so that the settings actually save. That's probably why it didn't work. Because we can just ignore that for now. And back to our article manager, and let's just try and preview, minimal. There's our video. Still no image. Well, we'll get a capture of that. Now, another thing I do is I used OpenAI, and I asked it to write me a blog on the benefits of chakra meditation music videos. And then I took this, ran it through the spin writer, and used it in one of my posts here. But this is generally how I try to create a more high quality posting, with the article. Of course, when you look at how this is in the preview, it's very basic. It's just generating it. When they go into these sites, they often get a more polished look to them. And that is just sort of my overview on how I will handle. And I've still got all the rest of these videos to add in here, and that'll be the basis for my starting articles. And then I can go back and add additional ones to just beef this up so I have a lot of article content to diversify my postings. Now, just a quick tip and a comment on that recording I did of the YouTube video setup is that is kind of the process that I use all the time, but I don't recommend using the spinner in GSA. That being said, if you don't have access to SpinWriter, want to purchase something like that, or find an alternate solution, if you have a copy of Money Robot, you can use Money Robot's spinner just by simply pasting your article content into here, and and then just run the spin article. Once the content is done, right click, select it all, copy and paste it out, and you could take it, put it right into your article manager in the process that I just outlined previously. Now, concerning logistics of articles that you want to load in here, look, you can also, this has a built-in tool that you can search online and basically, like, let's say, mix paragraphs and sentences, and we can give it a search term, and it will go out and scrape content and put together an article. And you can spin it and do certain things, but I don't suggest using that. I suggest that you take the time to put better quality stuff. When I do them for my YouTube, I consider those my lowest quality of type of postings. But in terms of what's a good quantity to put in here, the more the better. Especially if you're doing a campaign with a lot of AI generated article content for these postings. Remember that each one will have spin tags, so it will be posted multiple times. However, each time it will be somewhat different thanks to the spin tags. In addition, the more you have, the higher your success rate is going to be, because you're going to have more diversifications with a higher quantity of articles. 50 is a really good number to have. Now, of course, when I'm doing YouTube videos, I don't do that. I keep it in more of a narrow range. But for some affiliate marketing related type things, I want a lot of articles that are talking about whatever it is that I'm promoting in one fashion or another. So, I wouldn't run with less than 10 or 12, but you want to try to get yourself to a nice 50 is a good number, or even more if possible. Once you get to a point where you start to understand your processes for trying to automate things, how you create that article, where you get the content spun, and getting it into this system, and how many different things you're also going to be promoting in terms of URLs. Now, in my last video, someone here left a comment. Thanks, sir. I just started GSA, 6 hours are gone, but only 20 were submitted URLs and 1 is verified. How much time it take to create backlinks? Well, that's a good question because I don't know the specifics of your scenario, but I'm going to make a few good guesses here in that what you are attempting to do is run this scenario where you're going to be scraping for your own sources, in which case you can see there's quite a few here. It's a very, very lengthy list, okay? And just a tip, there's probably quite a few of these you want to take off your list, that you're not going to have any impact. China, you're not, that's not really, North Korea, some of these countries, you're going to find they're not useful. Now, logistics is everything, because you're scraping. That scraping is going to be based on these keywords. And when you're taking this approach, you need a lot of keywords, because those are the keywords and phrases that the software is using to go out and search and scrape for resources that are compatible to post with. So it's going to need lead time. Also, the more phrases that you have, the better, as it relates to what you're looking for. Now, there's a bit of an art form in keyword research too, and how you do that. I'm not going to cover that in this video because this is more about this in terms of the learning the software. But in that approach, you need a lot of keywords, because those keywords need to be utilized, and they can also be in other languages, so you broaden the results. Okay, so now you've got that happening, but at the same time, you know, if you are, depends on your use of threads and how many resources you're drawing, obviously, but if you are scraping proxies, which I assume you are, that is also going to need lead time. As you can see, when I start this program up, because I have the proxy scraper configured, it is searching and testing for new proxies as we speak. And you can see I've got a high number. So after you've got your campaign all set up and ready to go, you want to let this run for a while. Give it a good hour or two lead time, and always remember to sit behind the VPN. Give it a chance to gather up the free proxies that it needs so it's going to be able to run your project. Now, just in the time since we went from part 1 to now, this interface has updated. GSA has updates for all of their software once a week religiously. So you see now when we have here, they've changed this to a 3-tab setup, okay? And so it's a little bit better. And you see I've just got the default. This is just the default what the program installs directories. But what I want to cover in this video, and the reason for getting into how to use a list, is because when you're scraping your own sites, it takes time. And generally, what you really want to be doing when you start that process is already having an existing list that you're building, because when you get a list from another company and you utilize it, you're going to use that to also help you build a master list. Now, that's not necessarily what you have to do, but learning how to manipulate your list is a bit of a skill too. And so let's just take a look at 2 other setups that I have going on other machines so we could see a little difference here. Now here, I'm using a list. And there's something important that I want to... this is the wrong one. Let's go to this one. I'm using a list. When we go to our options here, if you look down here with this particular setup, I have nothing selected. You see? But what is selected here is use URLs from global site list if enabled. And I have that. And this is a list that I'm using from another company. So in here where this interface has changed and we could see my site list, you can see these are directories that I created and put those files that I downloaded into this system. And that way, that's how this setup runs differently. But the key point here to know is about having the custom list, okay? And as this applies to when you're actually doing scraping too, because you will also have a list and you may want to enable that option on your setup here so that you can also use URLs from the global site list when enabled while you are doing this. Now, on this system, I am using SER Rocket, okay? And you can see I've configured 3 new engines here based on their setup. So let's just take a stop here and take a look at these 2 list site services and how they work different. Now, I'm currently using 2 lists. GSA SER lists, which you can see up here. Here's their URL, and I'll try to remember to post a link to the website and down below. And I'm using SE Rocket. Okay. Now you can actually go and look at this page. You don't have to actually be purchasing the list. This page is freely available, and what it does, it starts out by explaining how to configure Dropbox. And you don't even have to have a paid Dropbox to utilize this. And you follow their instructions, which allows you to sync the files to your Dropbox. And this keeps a continuous process because they will update those daily. Understand? And that being said, once you get past your setup, they will take you through the detailed setup instructions here, and they have a lot of nice tips along the way about how to adjust your system and configure your proxies, things we've already covered. Now keep something in mind, Everybody sometimes going to tell you something a little bit different, and as a result, it's going to depend on what you are doing. And the reason I say the best way is to start with one of these lists and learn their approach. Then go on to a different one after a while. You don't have to continue with them monthly. You can take these month to month, or you can buy it annually. This is nice for the ones that use the Dropbox, that you know you're going to have a setup that you just want to kind of keep running at a certain pace. You want to hopefully just maybe be posting 50 to 100 links a day. You don't want thousands. You'll see in their configurations, they will help you tone it down. And they even give you instructions here about configuring Xevil to it, which we just covered. And they go through a number of different scenarios, to the different aspects, not scenarios. And they'll show you just how to configure your custom list sites. So you see, when you have to use that option and configure, you'll get prompted with these dialogues, and you'll put your information that they supply into here, and they give you a lot of tips, because once you've got that configured, you're pretty much going to be able to run pretty smoothly. If you follow the guidelines specifically, if it's not running well, it's most likely because there's something you missed in these instructions. You made some minor mistake. Sometimes it only takes one checkbox to throw the whole project off. Okay? So they get into talking about a little bit different things. You know, deactivate the analyze and post competitor backlink option, important. Deactivate, use URLs linking on same verified URL option, important. See, when you now go to a different one like SER Rocket, you're not going to have to be concerned with that particular in those setups. Now, in my case, I own 3 licenses of GSA and their products, and more of some of their other ones. But that only means I can run it on 3 machines simultaneously, but I have it across maybe 8 machines, and I'm just never running more than 3 copies at a time. Every machine, I have a completely different setup. I'm using one list, or I'm using this list, or I'm scraping on my own. Now, this is very nice. Like I said, gets you through, gives you a little review on all the setup options, things that we're covering in this video that I've already talked about. And we take a look at something like SE Rocket. And when we go over here, this is my setup with the system using the SE Rocket, where I actually created these based on their instruction, as opposed to this one, where I think this system is the one that I'm actually using using the list from GSA, but I'm not certain because I got a lot of these going. In any case, when we look at SE Rocket, here, this is a different type of configuration. And just a quick note, what they offer here too is they have this nice GSA best practices guide. I right-clicked on it and opened it up, and this is a nice PDF to have and review from time to time. Just has some like things about, you know, clearing your target URL cache and some other useful things that help you gain a better understanding of these systems. They also have their setup search guide here, which goes into detail. Okay, and I want to point out here, you see how like they will have you change certain settings and numbers, and you'll see that in many of these, because they don't want you burning it out or burning out your proxies or trying to post everything in 5 minutes. You want to tone these systems down. And you can see this was the process and how I configured these. When we go to the actual software, let's click add here. Let me pause the video, straighten this issue. There we go. And voila, this dialog comes up, okay? And as you can see, I'm going to have to blur out my own stuff here. I've got 3 of them created for different setups, which are meant for these particular URLs that they supply me. Now, I have to blur this out because these are actually, I can copy and paste these right out of here, and that's what I'm going to use to set up my fields in here when I launch the Add Edit dialog box. We'll give that a second again, as it likes to be a little slow. But I've created three, one for contextual backlinks, one for their random list, and one for the verified. And then you just put your name in here, follow the instructions. It's pretty simple mostly. You're just going to be changing one or two numbers, giving it a name and your URL, and you're ready to go. When you follow their instructions, I mean, I found this works like a, perfectly. Now, they also give these to you where you can download them for each individual set and by platform. Okay, so this is also useful because some people don't want to necessarily do that. What they want to do is download the lists so that they can run it more in their own scenario. Again, I'm on the wrong one. So they can be, running from your pre-built, your already verified list and running with, that you have that configured into your campaign. Now, not to confuse you, but in this scenario where I set up three, these are only running one at a time, and they all have that same format of files, which is based on how GSA works. So you're always going to have a verified, a submitted, an identified, and a failed. But in this case, they have some different list types, like contextual. Before we get into that, just take my advice, is you want to start with the verified list. Those are the ones you're going to be able to have the most success with. Utilizing contextual lists, they're random or identified. That's a little different. I'm not going to cover that in this video because this is a quick start guide, and the sooner that you get one scenario running, the closer you are to the next step of really understanding all these pieces, because this is a complex software. There are many different approaches to how you can configure this optimally to get the best success, and it takes time. It takes time, patience, repetition. You need to be reviewing things. Sometimes your campaigns are going to stall, and you're going to have to figure out why. Which software in the process is causing it? Have you run out of resources? Perhaps you need some new keywords for searching and scraping. But when you start with lists, this way, this is going to get you off to success. And then once you have your own verified list, this is where you can start to take the road for configuring and letting the system, scrape using keywords. But you don't want to combine these. Not with this approach, not with, is it set on my other one? And not with SERS either. The SERS engine list for the WP, for the Web 0.20 blogs, okay? So when you're using these specialized lists that you're feeding from them, you do not want to do any searching, scraping, because that is just going to rail you right up to getting all of your IP addresses blacklisted. When you start with a one list at a time approach, start to learn to understand how to manage your list, because it is very confusing. And just to be clear, while this is part 2, we are going to have more, because there's probably a good 4 to 6 hours of real training to really learn the ins and outs of all of the types of things that happen in these softwares. And a lot of that really needs to be covered when I'm experiencing it and can sort of shed light on those scenarios or certain types of problems. Because, look, sometimes my campaigns run fantastic, and other times, just like that gentleman left the comment, is my thing running right? Well, it takes time to sometimes figure that out. But when you're first starting out, and you're just scraping, of course it's going to be very slow, and you have to take into consideration all the other factors that are running. Because remember, we're not just running GSA search engine ranker. We're going to be running 4 or 5 pieces of software together, and they are all going to be consuming resources and CPU and running different amounts of threads, and these are where you're going to want to learn how to tweak those little settings, especially when it comes to thread counts. this is also why I recommend what you really want to do is start with a list. So you have something to build off of. And once you have gone through that list, you can use those lists now against your scraping process, like so that you're not going to scrape the same site that you've already posted to. And those are all controlled in a lot of your, options here, where you can tell it not to post to the same site. But when you're going to handle with a single list and you get the sort of the ins and outs of the processes where you realize, yes, I'm running, I've got it, and then you go to a different type of one, because before you can really get into the more advanced building them on your own, that really takes some time. And logistically speaking, you don't want to be dropping 10, 20,000 backlinks overnight. Now, when you first get started with a list, if you get a few thousand posts the first day, that's fine, and that's going to give you a good feeling. But you want to keep it in a controllable margin. 50 to 100, or perhaps yours is better at 100 to 250. There are people that can do as many as 500, but you must understand the ecosystem in which you compete. You cannot grow at a pace faster than the rest of your ecosystem. This is why when you suddenly appear with 20,000 backlinks from varying resources just like overnight that get indexed too quickly, you are going to get penalized. In addition, a lot of these sites, they're not going to want to keep your stuff up. Many of these sites are created just for the purpose of giving people and the owners of these sites the capability to influence search engines from the depths of the ocean, like I show in the other video. But you must make it fit your scenario. You can be more liberal with YouTube videos because those aren't your web pages. They're not getting that same kind of rank, and you're trying to show that your YouTube videos are everywhere, and Google loves YouTube because it's theirs. So there doesn't ever seem to be any kind of negative impact with that approach. But when you're doing content for websites, look, ultimately, when I use this software, I don't put affiliate links into these posts. What I am directing to are web pages where the actual sale takes place, that process that leads the person there, and then like a funnel, for example, and then ultimately to the actual landing page or purchase of the end result. It all depends what is the purpose of the campaign, but in an affiliate marketing sort of sense, that as you might understand it, maybe you think you just want to post links out there. That's not an impossible thing to do either, but you have to really consider about, all of these options when you start adding them, how in your data sets, as all these fields appear for each one that you enable, you have to understand the process of what's going on in there so that your stuff fits in nicely. So you're not spamming. You just want to sort of grow it at not at a too slow a pace, but certainly not at this 50,000, 100,000 links overnight or 2-3 days. That's just really not useful, because those forums and different platforms, they're not going to want all that stuff. Another reason why it's so important to diversify it, to get as many articles as you can, because the potential to actually over time build up tens of thousands of postings, you want them to be lasting and have value, because the ones that last and have value and been there longer are ultimately going to help you more than the ones you do currently. So that being said, let's take a look at something else. Now, there are so many aspects to how to go about setting up campaigns and working lists that this is not going to be the last video. But as I said, I wanted these videos to help you get fast-tracked to started. And the fastest way to start is by learning to use third-party lists first, because it takes time. GSA by far is the most complex of all these softwares that you're going to get involved with. But using this, you're going to be able to outperform the others in the end. I also suggest that even if you're just buying a single scenario of these softwares, a single license for each one, I suggest you get 2 for this. So you can run a separate copy on another system to tinker around with and review, because during the long days and hours while this is running, you can't really mess around with it. You want to be able to look at another one that you've got running and just constantly be going through the dialogue boxes. And it's kind of common sense, everything they're telling you. There's a lot of help items and there's a lot of information out there. Get on GSA's forums and look at what they're talking about over there. Now, since I can't really cover everything here in one video, like I said, we get you started. But because I brought Xevil into it, one thing I want you to understand, if you decide to go that road, which I suggest that you do, you need third-party proxies for this to really make it run successfully. And I suggest cold proxies. They have an offer for $70 a month. You get 1,500. They are IP6 proxies. I haven't purchased them yet, but I will be doing so in the next hour or two and plan to be getting a much better result, as I had someone who was more familiar with the software throw me a few quick tips about the Xevil. And I put my own proxies in that I had, but I have a limited number and I don't want to burn them out with this. But this product works fantastic. So that's just my recommendation if you're going to try to throw this into the mix short term and go into some things about list. That being said, before I come out with another video about this, I've got other videos. I really want to take you into a video about XRumer here. XRumer is a very nice product, and at the time when I purchased it, I did not really understand it, which was back in 2017. And that's really when I first was getting acquainted with these type of things. And I was already working with GSA a bit, but I didn't realize this is not the same as GSA in that it is not going to be posting to multiple platforms. This product is only going to post to forums, but it is far more powerful than GSA in its ability to promote to forums. And so they basically have three main products, which is the XRumer, which is the posting system, if it will ever start up for us here. Fast forward along, and we've got all three products started up. So we've got Xevil Captcha Breaker. This is the XRumer that you actually create and runs the posts. And this is hreffer. And what this is the scraping tool that goes out and finds the forum sites. Now in here, this is really a different product. Only like a single post is going out at a time, and it's a little different animal. And like I said, only forums. However, it is super powerful. You can reach literally 50,000, 100,000 forums posts. It's insane. And utilizing this tool correctly is amazingly powerful in a way that's different than GSA. GSA has a variety of platforms, but in the level at forums, this is far more powerful, and its ability to get in to those forums successfully and post and do follow-up posts to other people's posts is pretty incredible. And we'll be doing some videos about that. I'll also be doing some direct videos on SEO, also SEO autopilot, and we'll be moving it along a little bit quicker. But now that I got you into some basic understanding of some of these things, step by step, we'll progress. So probably my next video is going to be a direct about SEO. We'll talk about the web and some things that, trends that are happening, and a lot of talk that you hear if you follow, Google and all of their system updates. So we got a lot of good stuff on the plate we'll be talking about. As far as GSA goes, this is a complicated software. There's no doubt about it, and I will have more tutorials to follow up with this. And I think some of those are really going to just be born out of a lot of the campaign types that I do that glean a lot of useful information. But the reality is there's no one-size-fits-all setup, and that's just the way it is. Every list company has sort of its own approach, and there's more than one approach for each company. When you know how to manage and set your lists manually, you can just download them. You don't need that synchronization. But in the case of where you're syncing with your Dropbox, if you've got a nice slow running campaign that you're basically just going to leave that thing on around the clock, then every day as this updates new files to your system, it's just going to pick them up and keep going. And you just keep building your base a little bit at a time, because the truth is, for a lot of smaller sites, you don't need a lot. You want to keep it small. You want to be doing 50, 100. That's it. You want to go slow, and you sometimes have to give it a break too in between, or do different types of campaigns. Oh, a nice little thing I note here. I'm sure this is just for sales, but they do say customer support. So, if you get a little hung up with anything here, I found this process was super easy to get set up, and you'll be off and running. So I show these two because I'm pretty sure I have one or two others that I belong to, but these are two that I think help level the playing field to get you started and have a good number of resources to be able to post to. That being said, guys, I'm looking forward to doing some more videos, SEO, and some big concepts to kind of broaden your perception about a lot of these things, and hope to start to be able to produce some of those a bit faster. There will be a follow-up to this video, and we'll be talking more about some of the other softwares. Ranker X, SEO Autopilot will be next. And if you like these videos and what we're doing here, please don't forget to give me a like and follow us. Thanks, and have a great day.